Great. I think we can go ahead and get started. Thank you again, everyone, for joining our webinar today. We're going to talk about what parents should know about parental control apps. Just a bit about us. We're the National Cybersecurity Alliance. We're a nonprofit organization, and it's our mission to empower a more secure, interconnected world. We do this by providing free resources and toolkits for families, for organizations and individuals on how to stay safe and secure online. All of our free resources are available on our website, StaySafeOnline.org. So we encourage you to check it out, as well as our other programs throughout the year. We have Cybersecurity Awareness Month coming up this October. We have Cybersecure My Business, a program for small and mid-sized businesses, our HBCU Cybersecurity Career Program, and Data Privacy Week every January. And with that, I'll turn it over to Lisa, our moderator, and our speakers today. Please note the webinar is being recorded, so it will be available to everyone to view by tomorrow afternoon. It will be posted to our website and sent out in an email to everyone that registered. And if you have questions at any point, please go ahead and put those in the Q&A box. We'll try to get to as many of those by the end of the presentation as we can. So Lisa, I'll turn it over to you.
Thanks, Jen. Hi, everybody. I'm Lisa Plagemeyer. I'm the Executive Director of the National Cybersecurity Alliance. And I'm joined today on this crucial topic. It's top of mind for a lot of parents by Delight Roberts, who's with the Digital Safety Office and Public Policy for Microsoft, and Jill Rosengard Hill, Executive Vice President of MAGID. There we go. Thank you, ladies, for joining us today. Let's jump right in. Delight, my first question is, we'll start with you, and then Jill, feel free to jump in. So Microsoft conducted a global online safety survey this year and found that 63% of people expected restrictions of illegal and harmful online content from their app and technology providers. So the consumer is largely responsible to take action to keep their kids safe, even though many of them expect otherwise, right? They expect the provider to do it. So we're here today on this webinar to help parents do just that. Also, according to that Microsoft survey, 91% of parents have taken at least one child safety action, which I was surprised that number was so high, honestly. But that also tells me that when your kids say, but mom, nobody else's parents are doing this, you can rest assured that 91% of them have done something. So apps such as Microsoft Family Safety utilize features such as content filters for apps, games, and web searches. Can you tell us about these features and how parents can use them to best protect their children online?
Yes, thank you, Lisa, and thank you for inviting me to talk about this important topic. Yeah, so as you mentioned, we conducted research, as we do annually for the past 7 years, around worries and concerns and how parents and adults and teens around the world are thinking about technology and using technology. And we do have a family safety app and settings features that allow parents to better control what their kids are viewing and seeing when they're using Microsoft products. One of the features that we have allows families, parents to establish what we call a family group. So you can set up the app and add your kids so that you can have a one-stop shop to go to see what your kids are doing and to set those filters. We do allow for filtering inappropriate websites, searches, apps, and games. For example, Bing, our search engine, is defaulted to Safe Search that filters out inappropriate content to help keep kids and families safer online. Another feature that we have allows parents to set screen time limits. And I'm a parent as well. We all know how important that is because the time goes very quickly for children when they're online. And that's a nice feature. It also has a practical effect of helping to minimize the number of arguments that you have in terms of, it's time to get offline, turn that off. We have also, researchers found that it's preferable to have that done automatically and through a feature that you can set up. Another really great feature is activity reporting. So parents can see very quickly, again, in one place, what their children are doing and for how long. We also have a feature that allows you to manage the purchases. That way there won't be any surprises for parents who have loaded a credit card onto an app or onto their phone, and kids will need to get explicit permission from parents before they can buy things. And then this idea of having the centralized controls in the app, so you've got a one place to go to enable all of these features, or to view, to see what your children are doing.
Jill, any other features with other parental monitoring type features that you want to highlight from your knowledge?
Thank you, and thanks for having me here today as well. Our knowledge at Maggot is based on insights that we gather from parents as well as kids of all ages, studying their content consumption habits across platforms. So games, apps, video, audio, across their mobile phones. And I would agree with Delight and what Microsoft is doing. Many of the platforms, as well as the apps, more recently than in the past, have developed safety centers, parenting hubs, where the tools have been made available. It does take effort to do it, but the tools are there. And those tools, as Delight was explaining, can do everything from blocking access, allowing for a limitation on the time spent, alerting parents to either new friends or new conversations or new platforms that their kids may be using, new apps that they're downloading, or blocking the ability to download apps. So there are tools across the board on various devices, whether it's your computer, your tablet, your mobile phone, of course, as well as the television that can be employed by parents. It does take effort and time, but I believe that many of the platforms and companies have done a much better job of late, really understanding how to communicate those to the parents, describing how to use them. But there really isn't a one-stop shop that allows you to do this across all your platforms.
Okay. Yeah, I wish these things are around. My kids are adults now. I wish these things had been around when they were in middle school and high school, for sure.
Oh, for sure.
So why is it worth doing? What do the threats look like? What are the things that will keep us up at night if we don't take some action? What kind of threats are our children facing?
Yeah, in a recent study that we did with parents of kids between the ages of 2 and 17, and the concerns differ greatly by what age group your kids fall in and what kind of a relationship in terms of communication and trust you have with your kids. But I'll give you a range of what those 20 or so concerns are. Number one at the top of the list for American parents really is sexual content, sexually suggestive content in video, in games, sexually suggestive photos, porn, of course. So that really tops the list in many different iterations of that. I think concerns about your child getting into inappropriate behaviors online, being a bully themselves versus being bullied by others, exposure to violent content. And this is why ratings exist, TV ratings and MPAA ratings, and even ESRB ratings on games, to prevent kids from being exposed to violent content in videos, in games, in music, and strong language, of course. Mm-hmm. So now I'd be remiss if I didn't say, of course, stranger danger. People are still highly concerned about child predators, creeps, potential grooming. And that does occur, and there are ways to monitor that. But I think as we get deeper into this conversation today, the key thing for parents to know is, one, you're not alone. Every parent we talk to says they're concerned, and many are overwhelmed by the amount of content consumers their kids are touching, being exposed to across all these platforms, across all ages. And two, most parents agree it's now at least more than half their responsibility to take action. Whereas before, many parents were saying it's the platform's responsibility, it's the content provider's responsibility. And I think as Delight mentioned, or as you mentioned in her study, the number of parents who are using parental controls has truly jumped up since we've been looking at this, where people said they want parental controls, but back in, let's say, in 2017, less than 20% had used them. Before the pandemic, we're around 65 to 70% have used them. During the pandemic, about 80% said they'd use them, and Delight's numbers are more in the 90s now. So the tools exist and parents are using them.
Yeah, I think that's really good news. I think that's a little bit of a silver lining on the pandemic. Yeah, there was a time when you could just take your kid's device away, right? You've had enough today, and you've had enough screen time, or I'm worried about what you're doing on there. And with online school and homework and everything else that they need their devices for, that ability to just physically remove the device went away, because now they need it because they've got to do schoolwork, or they're doing remote school during the pandemic, or what have you. So I think that was probably one of the things that caused more parents to take action. I think that's a good thing in a way. So we've talked about all the threats. Delight, tell us a little bit about how the features work to protect children. How can parents use them to keep their kids safe?
Yeah, thank you, Lisa. Yes, Jill very accurately pointed out all the top risks that we also have noticed and that we are concerned about. And to address some of those top risks, such as viewing inappropriate content and unwanted contact with strangers, we created, this is the reason why we created some of these features. So we really, at Microsoft, we look to see what is the problem that needs to be solved, how can we improve our products, and how can we make that a better experience for parents and families, which is how we devised some of the features that I talked about. Primarily, it's the reason that we allow parents to have so much control around filtering, with Bing, setting the screen time limits, and with our games, parents also are able in Xbox to see who their kids are, they can see who their kids are playing with. They can set restrictions based upon who they do or don't want their kids to have contact with. And another thing that we have done, because we know that kids are spending so much more time online, and as you mentioned, Lisa, it's not just for school. Well, this is partially for school. It's for school, but we now recognize that tech actually has an important role to play, both in kids' social development. So that's how a lot of teens are socializing now. They are much not as keen to get together in person, but they'll be texting each other constantly. If you have ever seen a group of teens standing around together, they'll be texting one another, people who are standing right there, rather than talking to them. So I think recognize that there is a value in having kids have access to technology. And one of the things that we have tried to do is to meet families and kids where they are, in some instances, to help teach about safety concerns. And we developed with Minecraft, with the education edition, we developed a cybersecurity online safety game, or game that kids can play. It's designed for kids 7 and younger, and it's called Home Sweet Home, and then we've got one called Privacy Prodigy. And this is a way that to help young people understand how to both keep themselves safe and to keep their data safe as well. So these are some of the things that we have done to address what we know are threats for kids online and to try to get ahead of that, and to help families as well take those steps and help expose their kids to good online safety tips and information.
Looks like we had a little technical difficulty.
You're back though, and we can
I'm
hear you.
back. Yes. Did you guys just lose me or did we lose everybody?
No,
Just me. Okay, sorry. Carry on.
Yeah.
My connection dropped.
Yeah.
Delight, I can follow on that. I think gamifying it is a great idea, the way that you did that in the Minecraft app, because kids are concerned about their own safety online and their privacy online too. They tell their parents that they want to partner with their parents, A, so they can get the time and the exposure to the platforms and apps that they want, B, but they want to be empowered to set their own screen time limits, to understand the tools to protect themselves. And one of the things that we've learned in our research for companies who are looking at product development and feature development around trust and safety is that kids don't like the term parental controls, right? Because do my parents not trust me, or are these not tools for me to use? And so building out trust and safety centers, family centers, using those terms will get the kids to be much more bought in and use those tools than if you were just to label them as parental controls.
I absolutely agree. And one of the things, Jill, that you importantly raise is, you know, at Microsoft, our approach is that parental controls are just one tool to help keep your kids safer online. But really what we encourage families and parents to do is to talk to your kids about online safety and start talking to them when they are young. Lead by example. So kids are watching you and they're going to copy, they're going to see what you're doing, and they're going to want to do the same thing online. We think that talking about phishing is really important. Because that is something that happens very frequently online. And then things, you know, just habits like, you know, exercising caution when you're on social media, understanding that people are not who they say they are. They can grab a picture off of the internet and then create a profile so that a 12-year-old thinks they're talking to another 12-year-old, where really they're talking to a 40-year-old, you know, in a different country, for example. And also just downloading reputable apps and games. And as a parent, understanding what your kids are doing online, what apps are they downloading, maybe spending some time figuring out how those work, what are the features, we think really helps to round out in a more fulsome way an approach to online safety.
I would agree. I think educating yourself as parents is really key. If your kids ask about an app, before you say yes, download the app yourself. Take a look at it, see what's on there, understand that, talk to your kids. I agree, Delight. Continue that communication. So start early, as you suggested, and you can change the way you discuss and what you discuss as your kids age up. But really talking about asking them questions about what they're watching, what they're seeing, what they're sharing online allows them to be a part of the conversation, share with you and give you information, and allow you to continue that conversation.
So Joe, I have a question for you. When you search parental monitoring, you know, when you Google it, you find, or use Bing, or use any search engine of your choice, you find a long list of organic results and then a ton of advertised results, right? Paid results for a lot of different parental monitoring apps that are out there. So what do you recommend? Do people really need one of those third-party applications? Or can they use the parental control features that are native to different devices and apps themselves?
Yeah, there definitely are a number of paid apps out there with annual subscriptions, monthly subscriptions. Some have a free entry, and then you can add on features for monitoring. But what we found with many of those cloud-based third-party apps is there isn't enough return on your investment as a parent for paying on that monthly basis, because it can't really get at the filters and the block at the app level, at the content level that your child is spending the most time on. There are features on your Wi-Fi routers in your home that you can use, partnering with Verizon or Comcast, those that don't charge extra for that. That is already on your router that you just need to turn on, go to the website or turn on the app. So in the research that we've done, while there are some unique features on these third-party apps, our assessment is that there isn't enough value at the content level for you in most cases to pay the monthly and annual fees associated with it.
So it might take a little more of an investment of time upfront, looking at the different devices and applications, but at the end of the day, you have a better result.
I think so. And I'll just speak about, without naming one app that alerts the parent to if the child is on a site where there is inappropriate words or sexually explicit content. If you're a hands-off parent, that might be the app for you, because you're not taking the time to dialogue with your child, to look at the content, to know what they're being exposed to. So maybe for a short while, it makes sense for you to have an alert system that at least tells you what's happening. So I don't want to dismiss it totally, but I do think that the parents have to invest time to get to know the apps, the tools available on those apps that are very effective today and are much easier to find and use. And you can do it off platform, meaning you don't have to take necessarily your child's phone to be able to launch those.
That's good to know. Yeah, and it sounds like those alerts are also a bit of a rearview mirror, right? They're telling you that something already happened as opposed to preventing it. Okay, that's really helpful to know. So before COVID, we could try to restrict our children's screen time. Like I said, we could take their device away. But with COVID came all the remote learning and therefore increased screen time. And so that's a challenge to wrap your head around trying to limit screen time when they've got schoolwork to do on there and other things. So what are the challenges that parents face? How can parental controls help address these challenges? Either one of you want to take that one first?
I can start. Sure. I'm sure those Apple phone families know about screen time that the parent of the family group can place on the phone. There's some positives and there's a number of challenges with that. Yes, you can then see hourly, daily, weekly phone usage by genre, by app category for yourself and for your children. It is, you use a PIN to employ that, but we have found and heard and seen that teens are figuring ways around it and turning it off and resetting their phone and doing various things to get around it. So there are some challenges with it. But a lot of the teens that we have talked to have found great benefit in that because they want to self-monitor as they're, and I'm talking about 13 to 17-year-olds here, not necessarily the younger kids. That doesn't mean they're doing a good job of self-monitoring. But again, I think in partnership with your child, versus the overarching, clamping down, typically leads to better employment of those tools.
So, do you have anything you want to add there?
Yes, and just to follow up on Jill had said about, teens and kids really wanting to self-monitor and control. They have an interest in keeping themselves safe online as well. And another piece, another finding that we discovered when we did our own research was exactly that teens are experiencing a lot of risk online. And girls at twice the rate as boys. So they are well aware of the risks, and they're worried about it as well. And so they themselves are also trying to figure out ways, they're employing different mitigations to keep themselves safer. And one of them is they are interested in what is it that the platform that I'm using can provide for me, as opposed to yes, what is the platform doing? But again, goes back to what I had mentioned at the earlier, which is having that conversation as a family with your children, so that everybody understands the apps that are being used, their worries and the concerns that they're having online. When parents talk to their kids about online risks and like, look, I'm concerned about you. I'm trying to keep you safe. Here are some things that I've looked at. What are some things that you're doing? It really helps open up that dialogue. And then should something negative happen online, it increases the likelihood that then kids are going to come and talk to parents about what they've experienced, because they feel like parents are invested and they feel like they understand, that it's not just, oh, you don't get this, that's like old timey. So this is again part of this overall approach that we at Microsoft really recommend for helping keep your kids safer online from a holistic point of view.
I'd like to broaden that out, Delight, from just the word safe to the word inclusive. There's a lot of talk about fears and concerns of toxicity on platforms, especially as our teens are more exposed to more social gaming and social platforms where there's group chats and online gatherings with people that they don't necessarily know, but they go to school with them, or they may have a similar hobby as they do, or they're seeking out new communities to become a part of. And so empowering parents to talk more about inclusion, how do you feel, not just from a safety standpoint, because I do think safety is important, but I think some of these exposures online really speak to kids' self-esteem and mental health as well. And I think we have to be aware of those things. That's why I said I'd be remiss if I didn't mention the grooming and the online predators, but it's way beyond that today. And so parents need to have in their toolkit the ability to have more emotional conversations with their kids about what they're seeing and hearing and how they're feeling and whether they're included or excluded in a lot of those social conversations.
Yeah, that's such an important point, Jill. And the mental health aspect is something that actually Microsoft is really focusing on in this coming year. And as I mentioned, we have run a global online safety survey for the last 7 years. And this year we've pivoted it slightly to look at the impact of technology on kids' mental health as well, because we do know that it is, to your point, we are now beyond just trying to keep kids safer online. This has become, the way that technology is being used and the communities that kids are seeking out online and the places that they're spending their time. None of that exists in a vacuum. And so we, as a company, really want to be mindful of what does that mean when we are building products and services, and what does that mean for Microsoft to contribute to the broader dialogue in general, aside from what it may or may not bring Microsoft, but helping to share the findings and to highlight some of the worries and concerns that both teens and parents have regarding that really important issue as we move forward.
So let's move on to the next question. Really good discussion here. So kids have access to multiple social media platforms, right? There's Instagram, YouTube, TikTok, the online gaming, all of it. And I feel like there's new ones that pop up every day. I just heard last week about some app that your child can use to see who he's got, which friends are in his classes, his or her classes. And of course, there's privacy and security concerns around that as well. Children sharing their schedules with each other and being able to see which classes they share with their friends. So it came out of nowhere, brand new thing just a couple weeks ago, to my knowledge. So how do you keep track of what your child interacts with, and especially when there's new apps popping up all the time? Are there trends that parents need to be cautious about here?
Boy, I'm the mother of a 13-year-old, so I am living this. Yes, you know, I think one of the best things that parents can do is, like we said, talk about what your kids are doing online. Ask them what apps they're using. Ask them, and not in a defensive manner, but just in terms of sharing, like, what are you doing, or how does that work? Because a lot of the times, the new apps that kids are using, I hadn't heard about it before, and so it's an opportunity to have that dialogue and come from a place of curiosity. What are you doing on that? Who are you meeting? A question I'd like to ask is what's different about this? Like, why is it important to be on this app? Like, what does this app offer you that, say, messaging does not? I think that's especially useful for some of those online chat rooms. An app that I won't mention, that's the functionality. It's that you can keep your anonymity and you can be talking to people. And so, but a lot of students, classmates, kids in school use this. And so I was curious, why don't you just, text message each other? What is unique about that app or that community? And I found that to be really helpful for my own education. And as far as trends go, that's a tough one, because the trends change so quickly, and where, kind of the hot points or the flash points for those trends aren't typically where parents are hanging out either online or spending their time. So that was a little bit more challenging, but I would say just trying to be aware of, doing a search yourself. I like to read, just read different articles that are out there where somebody else who has researched this and can help me keep up. But again, I have found that it's just way too easy to be behind, because it's just changing. Once something is out in the mainstream for a lot of teens and kids, it's not cool anymore. They don't, they've moved on. And so I think one of the challenges for parents is that once they've figured out, they've got their list of the apps and they feel like they've got some sort of, visibility across all of those things and how they work and what their kids are, then they change. Right.
Yeah.
And that's where I think really having that conversation to be like, hey, what are you doing? What is this? I think too, interestingly enough, especially if you have a teen, some of the lingo they're using, and if it's a new term you haven't heard before, hey, I haven't heard that before. What is that? Where'd that come from? That can also be a way to understand where your kids are spending time. And again, this is really more teen focused, because that's experience. And for younger kids, it's easier. And one of the things our research has found is that it's much easier, of course, for parents to monitor younger children than it is teens.
Yeah, not only the apps themselves changing, but the things can change within the settings of the apps you already know about, right? Updates can get pushed, and then the actual privacy and security settings can change, even on the apps that you're aware of and where you've had controls in the past.
Yeah, that's true. And also, parents should look at what are the terms of service in terms of the age for those apps, because in many cases you can just use that as the reason that you're not going to allow your child to download the latest Be Real app or others that are coming up. So I can share with you some of the insights that we have. First of all, teens are using TikTok and YouTube every day and more regularly than any other platform. And teen girls are more likely to use both TikTok, Instagram, and Snapchat because they see social media as a place to really express their creativity. Teen boys are more likely to say they're using YouTube, Twitch, and Reddit. We know that Discord is a very popular site for teens, not only for teen gamers, but now for building community and chatting with friends. Other popular apps amongst teens include Dispo, which is a photo editing and photo sharing app, Reface, which allows you to take a selfie and replace your face with another face. And we're starting to see the potential of deep fake and AI come into some of these apps that teens are experimenting with. Other popular apps include Kik, Whisper, Yubo, of course, Visco, many of you may have heard of, which was the photo editing and allows for features and filters. So they do come up, and I agree with Delight. Once you've started to hear more and more about an app as mainstream, it probably has all of a sudden become passé. But those top ones, TikTok, Snapchat, YouTube, remain at the top of the list.
So if you're a parent and you're just getting started, what do you think which features do you think are the most important? Like, what should parents be focused on?
Well, with younger kids, I think it's everything from restricting specific downloads and use of apps, looking at real-time content filters, understanding how to filter content. This may be on the more of the streaming platforms, but by their rating system. Right. So all of the streaming services and cable and satellite services have parental controls that allow you to block content for 13 and older, or mature or R-rated content. I think, especially since the research shows so many people are concerned about sexual content, that's a really interesting place to start. You can hide all the adult contents, adult titles on those types of platforms. So blocking and limiting use by time, because time spent is a concern. And again, I think that it's best to do this at the app level, but potentially also at the router level of the Wi-Fi router in your house.
Delight, anything you'd like to add there?
I think Jill did a really was pretty comprehensive. I would say for older kids and for teens, one of the things that the research has borne out that we all know is how much time teens are spending online, and the interference that has with their sleep, and how important sleep is to brain development and to growth in general. And so I do think for that age group, really understanding, what is the best way as a parent to be keeping on top of that. I know, one of the recommendations that we often hear is to keep the tech out of the bedrooms, turn that off for some time before you go to bed. But I think that's something to be mindful of for older kids, because it is much harder, as we talked about earlier, to control what your kids are doing online. And as they get older, it's going to be much harder as well. I also think it's, as we talked about that evolution as kids age, this is really about enabling them to make good choices for themselves as they grow into adulthood. And so what I think talking to kids early about this issue, and often does, is it basically helps them scaffold their skills, so that when they are an adult and they're off to college or they're living on their own, they have developed some good habits for being online.
I would agree with that. I think there's some other resources, Lisa, I'm happy to reference. So I talked about the router. So where you get your Wi-Fi from, or where you bought the router from, the manufacturer, is one. I think also going to your wireless provider's platform. I know Verizon has an excellent digital parenting site, digital parenting in a digital world, that can arm you with toolkits. They have a product called Smart Family. They put content online. of course, your organization and others like the Family Online Safety Institute both have toolkits and resources for parents. It's worth seeking these out and reading them and empowering yourself. And again, at the app level, at the platform level, look for Parent Center, Safety, Trust and Safety Center, parenting controls that would allow you to monitor, block, limit the time spent and the things that your kids do on those platforms.
Great. It looks like we have some questions that have come in. Jen, what do people want to know?
Let's take a look. So we have a lot of requests for how to access the data and resources that Jill and Delight mentioned. So we will share links to everything after this webinar when we send around the recording. But Jill and Delight, if you want to kind of point people in the right direction where they can find your research now, that'd be great.
Yeah, I can start. So one of the places that where you can find our research, if you search Microsoft Online Safety, and again, I'll share these links too, so you don't have to write these down or memorize these. That points to our research and other good safety guidance. If you search Microsoft Family Safety, then you'll find very clear directions about how to download the Family Safety app and then also step-by-step instructions on how to activate some of the settings that we discussed.
I saw in the chat, Jen, one of the things that people are asking for is like a parent checklist. I think that's a great idea. I don't know if you guys have that on your site, but maybe we can pull one together and have people come back to the site to download.
I saw that as well. And I'll share a few articles we have on our site. We don't have a checklist, but I love the idea. If anybody's aware of any checklists that are out there already, please put that in the Q&A box and we can share those. But yeah, that might be a
If not, I think it's a great thing for us to do. Yeah.
Great. There are some questions about children being able to turn off some of the protections on these parental apps. Are children able to override them? And there's also a kind of follow-up question to that. Is there any insight into the median age when children figure out how to get around parental controls?
Kids are really smart, and these tools are not necessarily foolproof. You know, I would say that we're seeing and hearing kids as young as 11 and 12 kind of circumventing some of the restrictions that are put in place. There are ways for them, as I suggested, some people reset their phones, some figure out the PIN code and password that you've put in, some have figured out how to reset that. It is happening. But again, I think that is incumbent on the parents to have those conversations. It's hard. These kids are smart and they're often way more digital than we are. So you have to stay on top of it.
There's a question here. Is there a recommended age before which a child should not have their own connected devices?
Well, I think it's different. We've seen by region, by age of the parent and what generation the parent is in, by age of the child. So there isn't necessarily a rule of thumb. We are seeing that there are kids as young as 8 receiving smartphones and mobile phones. If you're going to give your kid a phone at that age, 8, 9, and 10, before you do that, there has to be controls put in place. There has to be a contract with your child. There has to be heavy monitoring because they're going to explore and figure as much out as possible. And they are at greater risk for the type of content be exposed to the content that you obviously don't necessarily want them to. Obviously we've seen kids who have their own tablet at the age of 3, 4, and 5. And so Apple and Samsung and other manufacturers have put in place, as best as they can, the types of controls. But again, it's incumbent upon the parents to be able to know what is the term of service for the app, for the content. Is the content appropriate? But content appropriateness, while there is ratings and there are standards, it is different parent by parent.
I would add too that you need to start having conversations with your children about online safety even before they have their own device, because their friends have devices and the school has devices, and waiting to think about this until you actually are getting them a phone is probably a little bit late, because they're exposed to technology from such a young age now, even if they don't actually own something.
And to that point, we have a question in here. What is a good way to convey that foundational information to a young child between 3 to 7 years old? What do you say in that conversation?
Delight or Lisa, do either of you want to?
Go ahead. Go ahead. I think I mean, from what I hear, when I spoke to a middle school not too long ago, and from what I hear from children at that age, they're already very tuned into the stranger danger kind of messaging. So that would be my default answer, but I'm sure you have a more informed opinion than I do, Jill or Delight.
I would say, I mean, I do know that the Academy of Pediatrics has put out some really great advice and guidelines. So I would recommend, that people look there. I know I've seen that myself around both ages, the age at which doctors think that kids should, that it's okay for kids to have access to technology. And then also some guidelines around how to have conversations around that. And again, like I said, if your kids are playing a game, understanding, if they're small, you can just use language that is age appropriate around, what you might already be talking about as a family. And again, referring back to the Minecraft, the home sweet home, looking for opportunities or for features like that can help you have that discussion that's been created to be age appropriate, because the Minecraft content was designed for kids ages 7 and under.
Well, I'm not going to necessarily share words and ways with parents to speak to their 3-year-old, 4-year-old, 5-year-old, which they should and can be doing. I'm going to put it back on the content providers who are required for rating their own content and are doing a really good job of having content that's preschool specific, 5 to 7-year-old specific, 8 to 10-year-old specific. It is labeled and rated for you, but parents can't just turn on the TV and let their kids watch anything they want, right? Same on a tablet, same on a mobile phone. Know the content provider, whether that's Disney, Nickelodeon, or even some of the streaming options that are out there today. There is age appropriate content for each of those age bands, and having a standard or a rule within your house that says until you hit that age, I'm not going to give you access to that, because as a parent, that gives you just a sense of calm, that that the content for that age is age appropriate. Versus, and here's one of the things that's the hardest, is that when you have older kids and younger kids, the younger kids are gonna at an earlier age be exposed to what the big brother or sister are watching. So you do have to be mindful of that because of the earlier exposure that they'll have.
Jen, any other questions?
Yeah, so we have a few people asking for specific recommendations on parental control apps. Some people are chiming in, recommending specific apps like Bark and Custodio. We'll also include links to a few buyer's guides in our follow-up resources as well that do a good job of kind of laying out the apps that are out there. But I'll let Jill and Delight chime in if there's any they've recommended in the past.
No, nothing from me on this.
Yeah, and I think Jill's earlier advice was that you use what's native to the application, because those, if you think about it, the company that built that application is going to know it better than anybody else and be able to have more effective monitoring in place. So I think that was her recommendation earlier.
Someone's asking, what do you think is the next big thing when it comes to apps and social media? And maybe to that point, we've also gotten questions asking about what the impacts of AI might be on this topic.
Anybody want to make a prediction about the next big thing? I have no idea.
Delight, Microsoft is out in front on AI.
Yeah, I know. That's why I was thinking about how to answer that question. What I can say is, I cited some of the global online safety survey that we are doing. We are very cognizant about the impact that AI is going to have on teens, on kids who might be using the services, and we are very interested in understanding what that looks like to help inform us as we go forward. So we actually started to engage with researchers last year, because we know and we understand that this is going to be this is going to be a big change for most of us, for all of us.
Yeah, I would agree. I think, as we, as adults, look at tools like ChatGPT and other generative AI platforms, our kids are being exposed to that at a much younger age, being able to use it within an educational setting, helping them research and write papers and projects that they're doing in school. A number of the social media apps are looking to integrate generative AI on the platform. In fact, Snap, for example, allows you to have a friend, an AI friend, who can help you generate, what should you say to your parent if they ask you this? Or, what advice should I give my girlfriend who said this to me? And the app is generating those comments and sound bites for them. So there's going to be various applications of AI that are about to pop up very quickly here as features in many of the social media apps. So you may even want to say to your son or daughter, did you write that? Or did ChatGPT write that? Or did your AI friend write that? So that you have the ability to engage in that conversation, but it is coming very quickly.
And I just want to add on top of that, one of the things too, I know that there's a lot in the media and in the news around the risks around AI, especially with kids, but there's also a lot of opportunity there as well. And we are really excited. One of the reasons that we're commissioned this research and the survey, because we want to understand the opportunities that kids see for themselves around this technology as well. And so while there is risk, I also think that in Microsoft thinks there's a lot of upside here too. And as a matter of fact, Bill Gates he has a podcast, and he just was talking to the head of Khan Academy, an education company, and the whole conversation was all around the great opportunity and the way this is going to level the playing field in some ways for high schoolers. And so I think looking at some of the things, I think looking ahead at the opportunity is really exciting.
Any other questions? We have time for one or two more, Jen.
Yeah, we have still a lot of questions. There's one here. Are there good guides to help parents have these cyber safety discussions with their children? And I'll just chime in and say, we do have some guides on our website that we'll share after this webinar. Actually, someone also shared a link to the smarttalk.org, which is one we've recommended before as well. Jill, Delight, or Lisa, any other resources you recommend?
I'm a big fan of the Family Online Safety Institute. So FOSI.org has resources, video, toolkits for parents, for educators, and for companies. So that's a good one. And again, the content on AT&T and Verizon's websites, if you search under parents, under parental controls, under online safety, there's a lot of content on your mobile carrier's platform.
There are a few questions here, also more specifically about data privacy. Any tips for parents, like, what they should be aware of to share and not share about their kids online, making sure there isn't, inappropriate information about out there about their children on social media. What recommendations do you have when it comes to privacy?
Well, and Lisa, I'm wondering if your organization has specific privacy compliance or privacy guidelines, but I do think that not knowing that your child is going to have a digital footprint anytime they go on an app or a website, that they must be cognizant of the private information, the personal information, age, birth date, address, very obvious ones. But I think even more so today, still people don't want to post on social, name of their child's school, the team that they play on, more than just a first name. So I do think, again, depending upon the age of the child, privacy, separate topic than we really had today, is super important to be mindful and on top of.
And I'll just add, from a Microsoft perspective, privacy is of utmost importance for our company and for our customers. We do not do any behavioral ad targeting for users under 18 globally. That's a hard line for us. And when it comes to location, geolocation sharing is disabled by default for children, except for essential services like mapping. So, like, if you're a parent, you want to know where your child is. That's the one time that we will enable that. Also, with Xbox, we have a dedicated space online for kids to learn about data collection. And again, back to talking about the Minecraft game. In addition to Home Sweet, there is also a game that's called Privacy Prodigy that is a Minecraft module to help kids understand about privacy and personal data and how to keep themselves, the information that they should be mindful to not share.
That's great. I had no idea that was out there. That's fantastic. Well, I think we're out of time. As Jen said, Jen, do you want to recap what we're going to be sending out?
Yeah, and I'll just pull up our contact information as well while I do so. By tomorrow afternoon, you'll receive an email with the recording of this webinar, and we'll also send a whole bunch of links that we talked about. So all the research that was mentioned, the different guides to talking to kids about cybersecurity, buyer's guides to parental monitoring apps. We'll make sure all that's included, but I've pulled up our contact information on the screen here if you'd like to get in touch with us and share. A lot of you had a lot of great suggestions for resources and guides that we've taken note of, but if you have any other thoughts, please don't hesitate to reach out to us at info@StaySafeOnline.org.
Thank you very much. I want to thank our speakers today, and thank everybody for attending.
Thank you.